Redditors who have hired a private investigator, what did you discover? My vindictive aunt hired one to spy on me, and the guy found out quite a bit about me, like my dental records and stuff. I mean, I'm a pretty boring person with nothing to hide, so the guy didn't find much to use against me. An affair that my wife had been lying to me about for a year. I got incredibly damning photos that I texted to both of them just after calling my wife on the phone and having her lie to me once more. My wife was planning a surprise birthday party. A relative of mine who was cheating on his wife hired an investigator because he was suspicious that his wife was having an affair with another man. Can you believe this? I had one hired against me, and they found out everything. Tattoos that aren't visible normally, the address I lived at in a different country, medical records from an accident that happened 6 years prior, so many random things that aren't publicly available. I've hired them for incredibly boring reasons. I work as a lawyer, and occasionally I'll need a document from a courthouse that's too far away for me to just go there and pick it up. Occasionally the courthouse staff will refuse to make copies and mail them to me. So I've hired a few pies to pick up what I needed. I hire a private investigator about once a year to give me an update on my stalker, to ensure he's not looking for me again. It costs a lot of money, but I sleep easier. Also, stalker is dying of cancer, and I feel pretty good about that. Found out that they are very expensive. Well, my dog is definitely not sleeping with the neighbor, that's confirmed. Cost me $1,900 though. I am not a pi per se, but as a freelance journalist I have been hired now and then for private investigations. Roughly 80% of the people who either paid me or wanted to pay me for investigations turned out to be either crazy or were otherwise normal people who had fixated on some person and situation in an irrational and unhealthy way. I now avoid that type of work and stick with other forms of non-fiction writing and research. Had to serve documents on them for a matter, so we ended up finding out various contact information and that they had fled the country. That was enough for an application for substituted service, so we then got default judgment for $12,000, I think. Nothing exciting. They eventually paid up, so we didn't get around to having to sell their property. That Oscar faked being sick to skip spring cleaning day. Had one used against me, thanks current father-in-law. He found out that I was seriously a desperately boring person. Aside from my boring work and education history, he learned of 2 of my exes and the fact that they were pretty boring too, though one sadly struggled with an eating disorder. I don't think he knew what played World of Warcraft with his last ex a lot meant, but yeah. He learned I was adopted and had grown up with a very nice pair of parents, non-bio. Obviously. You know, until this second, I assumed he had wasted his money, and ended up with literally no interesting info. I'm kinda curious if the guy found out about my bio parents. And wonder if that colored his view of me. Not me, a friend of mine in US got a pie hired against him. It was his mother-in-law who hired the pie. The mill hated his guts, and my friend isn't from US, he's working in Silicon Valley as a software engineer and trying to get his US residence through his American wife. Even after 2 kids, the mill was still insisting to get him deported. She caused all kinds of trouble, even though her daughter asked her many times to stop it or she will never talk to her again. Every time she promises she will, but then they figure there's a new police chase after him. The mill plotted all kinds of shit: drug possession, gun possession, kidnapping of his own kids, living in US illegally, he's legal, and finally belonging to a terrorist group. The pie was hired to dig some dirt, anything that can be useful. My friend is pretty boring, the only shit you would find against him is his shitty code. Sitting in the middle of the African jungle, talking shop. This guy said he can find out anything from everybody. Bullshit, right? Have another beer. Guy gets the saffron and disappears to the back of the restaurant. Comes back half an hour later. Has my bank accounts, the medical records from the insurance company, the traffic tickets and the divorce proceedings, addresses of family members, recent flight bookings and info on countries I lived before. Scary. But, free of charge, the company paid for the saffron. Have another beer. I've never hired one, but I have been asked to investigate people. The guy my ex left me for did a podcast episode, and the only thing I learned about him that she hadn't told me was that he had a three-way relationship with two women that he claimed to have ended because they didn't tell him they had herpes. One of my customers who is a Jehovah's Witness is paranoid AF. She had pies following her. She has asked me on more than one occasion to look for a tracking device on her car. I look and find nothing but stop short of telling her she is carrying a trackable device in her purse. A particular pie took my money and ran only digital/online searches. I had already explained in great detail, with reasons and examples, that no results would be found online. Jobs with rotting fucker. Out of context question, can you hire one to see what information can find out from you? That my wife was actually not cheating on me with my son's little league coach. Cost me over $5,000 to figure that one out. My uncle. So my dad's dad disappear one day and never came back. My aunt hired a private investigator and found my uncle. Turns out my grandpops had another family. I've always wanted to go full Bart base but never had the funds. These stories are teaching me that one day I can. Eats popcorn while reading the thread. Watch There's Something About Mary. I worked under a pie as an intern for a while. Sometimes we would use a fake wanted fugitive poster to knock on people's doors and ask if they've seen the person in the area. We would use this tactic just to see who would answer the door, how the house looked, if anyone else lived in the house, etc. The amount of people who volunteer such information to complete strangers is nuts. Yes, we had badges and identification, but most people would never ask to see it in the first place. Not me, but this is kind of a funny one. A friend of my father's hired one to find out whether he was still married or not. He had been separated for many years but wasn't sure whether his ex had ever actually divorced him. Sounds strange to me too, but that's how I heard. He needed to know because he wanted to remarry. So what did he find out? That she had in fact divorced him, and was also dead. So no worries on that front. Upvoting because I want to see some answers to this. So not me, but my father. My parents have been divorced for over 10 years and are still fighting over the house and inheritance, as well as furniture, and much more. We found out that he hired a private investigator who spied on the entire family. We are 4 people, without counting my father. We do not know who the pie is, so it's possible that this person is still spying on us. We also have no clue if the pie has only spied on my mother, but on me and my other family members. But one thing is certain, my father knows everything. We have him blocked on all social media accounts. He can only communicate via phone calls and WhatsApp. But he knows what we are doing. He even knows when we go on vacation. You guys left the house for 2 weeks and went to the beach. Don't lie to me, I know. I swear to you. If you are being followed by a pie, assume that they can see you take a SHT inside your own house. It's disturbing. Hired one to find out what was in this suitcase that would cast a golden majestic glow on whoever opened it, and it was. It was beautiful. Never used one, but an insurance company had one follow me. Took a little while to notice, but once I did, they gave up pretty quick. Someone's privates were investigated. 3 weeks he took. 3 whole weeks. All he did was stand about in my garden all day looking at my hedge. Then I found out he was a private investigator. Must get my keyboard fixed. Not me, but my former boss. She hired a pie to investigate a guy from my country who she was dating online. All the birthday cards, little gifts, and little etc. she sent him never reached him, because as it turned out, he never gave her his real name. She finally had enough and hired a pie. Guy was married and he lived further away from where he said he was located. I worked for a private investigator. The dumbest cases were when people filed fraudulent workers' comp cases and then posted pictures all over their social media of themselves skydiving and shit when they alleged that they couldn't even walk. It was unbelievable the videos and pictures people would post after filing these claims with companies who had shit tons of money. My grandma that ran off with my money didn't want to talk with me anymore. Well, Daryl was the imposter. Not directly me, but 11 to 12 years ago my boss asked me to look for a buy. Apparently he felt his mistress was seeing another man. Ironic, I know. Don't know what happened after that. What I do know is that after a few months he was seeing another woman. My wife and I adopted our son from another country when he was 3. You don't get many records, but we did have the national ID number for his birth mom. We hired a PI to track down his family. He found the birth mom, older sister, and younger sister on the way. We have a recorded interview between the PI and birth mom where she shares how our son's pregnancy was a secret, not even her teenage daughter knows, and how she feared she could not care for him. We share some photos of our son with the birth mom and talk back and forth a little bit, awkwardly, thorough Google Translate. Our son's birth family knows about him now, and I think our getting in touch is the reason she kept her new baby. The mom appears to be concerned for his well-being and wants to make sure he plays soccer and not American football. When our son is older we plan to share all this with him and let him decide if he would like to meet them. Some of the best money we ever spent. That information is private. I discovered that if you Google Private Investigator, Google will suggest them to you in ads for 5 years. My dad did PI work when he retired from being a cop. It's a lot of people obsessed with their partners cheating, and partners cheating. I work as a bailiff. English is not my first language, so sorry if it's not the exact traduction. In my country, cheating on your spouse is still considered as a big lever to gain custody of the child during a divorce or ask for a lot of compensation. Part of my job consists of surprising one during the cheating act. So I will often hire PI to track down their habits, when, where they meet, how often, etc., and having more chance to catch them during the act. Sometimes we find some weird stuff. Hired a girl who had superpowers and a creepy purple suit guy followed me around all the time. They don't actually investigate your privates. Biden won the election. I didn't believe that my son had quit smoking, or drinking, or had a job. Found out he has been couch surfing and using the money I give him for drugs. I wanted to find out if Higgins is actually Robin Masters. Haven't found out anything yet. Had one hired to snoop around me. Used to be part of a gang that got together to help people in our area and keep it safe. We had to hide a girl from her abusive father because he was very good at covering for himself. The police tried to find evidence but couldn't find a thing. A PI was hired by the dad to find out all he could about me and some of the other members. A friend of mine in the gang called me up and told me there was someone in his house. I rounded up 5 other guys and we were at his house in time to catch the PI leaving through a window. We chased him down and beat the living shit out of him. He knew what he was doing and who he was doing it for. We never saw him again. I hired a skilled hitman player to find out who killed Zachary Carlisle. I discovered that private investigators are very expensive. Here are the wife of your photos. I have never hired a PI, but I have just read Private and Pirate. I need to take a dyslexia test. I take it you're hired. You guys who hired a PI for an affair, are all you from the US? Cause it sounds like those TV series, embarrassed smiley face. That you're a bit of a nosy cunt. That I could do more investigation asking my ex to give me his Sprint account password. That this has been asked 7 times in the last year. Not an answer to Op's question, but like how the fuck is some unqualified person labeled as a professional investigator and is able to do these things which should be left to actual police go do? Like why would you hire a guy like that too? He's basically stalking you, isn't he? And he's being paid to do it? Like holy fuck. If you like investigating, take a fucking career in the police force. Holy fuckaroonie.